Well, welcome to Women on Wealth. I'm Julina Ogilvie, and today's episode is Conversations that Build Wealth and Connection. Uh, Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful but often overlooked tools in both family life and financial planning, which is communication. From daily conversations to high stake decisions, how we communicate within our families shape our relationship, our outcomes, and our legacy. Joining me today is Peggy Bud. She's a nationally recognized communication strategist, TEDx speaker, author of Conversations Lead to Consensus and Navigating Special Education, and she's the founder of Speaking Skillfully. She has a background in speech language pathology and decades of experience working with educators, parents, and professionals. Peggy helps families move from conflict and confusion to clarity and consensus. Consensus. I can't even say that right. In today's episode, we'll talk about why communication breaks down, how to build bridges between generations, and what families can do starting today to create more intentional, impactful conversations at home. Peggy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Julian,
I'm
for
so excited.
having me here.
I know that every listener can think about tough conversations they've had with family. I personally had a difficult one last night arguing with my family about where we're staying next for our vacation. And it's amazing how these little conversations can turn into larger communication errors. I don't know if that's the right word. So
Well, communication breakdowns, yes.
communication breakdowns.
I think it's more breakdowns
Yeah.
that, and oftentimes it's because people don't feel that they're being valued and heard. And I think that's what we can talk
And that's what
more
we'll talk about. Yeah.
because that's really the key to avoiding those breakdowns is
Yeah.
making sure that what I feel or what I think, you at least hear it and value it. Doesn't, and that's the path to consensus.
Yeah.
Having those conversations doesn't mean that you are going to necessarily agree, but if you feel valued and heard and the decision goes a little different, you are willing to support it
Okay.
because you felt valued and you felt your input was considered.
We all want to feel valued.
We do.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into this, and I guess that's a great way to transition to the beginning of the questions here. So you have often emphasized it's more than what you say, it's how you say it. So how can tone and approach change family conversations?
Okay, well, I think we should start by thinking about where did I even come up with it's more than what you say, it's how you say it. Uh, this is really research based, going back to the 1960s. There was a psychologist, his name was Albert Moravian,
Okay.
and he did research looking at the three core components of communication, which most of us don't think about. Communication isn't just our words, and that's what we think about. You had that difficult conversation, it was just about what everybody was saying.
Sure.
We also have to think about how we're saying it. The vocal part of our communication plays a big part. And thirdly, the nonverbal part of communication plays an important part. Just like we were talking, do I look at you? Do I look at the camera? All of that plays a part in how people feel
Yeah.
and respond to the conversation. What Moravian discovered was that if all three of those components don't send the same message,
Okay.
then the words
Mm.
are only 7% of your message, and that's they fall apart. So you who are a numbers person would like the rule says 7, 38,
Yeah.
55. And so if our nonverbal communication
Yes.
I'm sitting here, you're talking to me, you're having this argument, and your arms are folded and you're leaning back.
I had some of that last night.
Okay, then what the other people are hearing is your frustration, your anger, and their words are not mattering. Your words are not mattering to them because you're giving them the message that even though I say, well, I hear you, you're demonstrating, I don't hear you.
Okay.
So what he found is that, but if you're saying, I really hear you, let's discuss this, and your nonverbal and your tone all come together, then
Okay.
then your words are really powerful. And I'm not in any way saying words aren't important, and they are important. It's just that when you're having that difficult conversation, if they all don't match,
Yes.
then the words will fall to the wayside because the other will bubble up.
Okay. So run through those numbers again.
Okay, the numbers were seven, I mean, it's 7, 38,
Yeah.
55.
Okay.
So they say that only 7%, well, so only 7% of your message is your words.
Wow.
That's not true.
Okay.
Your message is your words. 7% are your words when I'm sitting like this,
Yeah.
I'm looking angry, or I'm yelling at you.
Yes.
I'm yelling at you. My words don't matter. I could be saying you look beautiful, but if I'm yelling it,
Yeah.
you're gonna say she doesn't think I look beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, because the 7 is incredibly low.
It's an incredible, and the problem is I was just involved in a back and forth exchange on in what LinkedIn where somebody was criticizing this whole study, and I said, wait a minute, you have to understand what the study is.
Okay.
It's not that words aren't important. They are crucial to every message.
Yeah. But there's a backbone to it, I guess.
That's right. But
Okay.
if that message
Mhm.
isn't supported with all the other things, your
Yeah.
tone, are you looking at me?
Mm.
And proximity, am I sitting down and are we near each other?
Right.
Are we really feeling like we're connected?
Right.
Or am I standing across the room?
Mhm.
That's a different thing.
Okay.
Then the words start to fall apart because what happens is visually we remember what we see
Yeah.
rather than what we hear.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And
as far as words.
yeah. And I was just gonna say to the audience, Peggy, you and I were laughing because this is my first Zoom with the two of us sitting next to each other and not literally over a Zoom. So we're the physical communication aspect is here.
And that's so important because
Yeah.
we're connecting. We can look at each other.
Right.
We can talk in the camera, and it makes it more authentic.
More authentic. Yeah.
Definitely more authentic because when you're having a Zoom call, everybody's looking in the camera, or they're not looking in the camera and they're looking at the other person on the screen, but the listener or the watcher feels like they weren't listening or talking to them.
For sure. I think we've all been there.
Absolutely.
I have to do this more often. Okay. So can you share a memorable story where improved family communication transformed the connections?
I read that and I decided to keep that because I'm going to twist the question a little bit, but it's about a family story. And I think it's an important message that everybody needs to realize. Too often when we respond, especially whether it's in our family, to our children, to our spouse, and even in the world of business, we give that sort of zinger answer oftentimes, and we don't really think about the long-term effect of that answer.
Okay.
Short term, it might solve it.
Right.
So I'm going to share this story that happened when my son, who's now a father of grown children, was about 10 years old. And we were going off in the car for a family, whatever, excursion day. And he decided he wanted to sit up in front. So he rushed out and he got to the car first and he got in the car and he's sitting in front. And I got out there and I looked at him and I said, no, in the back. And in his typical style, he said, well, why? Why can't I sit up front? And my immediate response was, I'm bigger than you. End of story. He looked at me. I mean, he's 10 years old. I'm 5'3", but he was a lot shorter. Got out of the car. I mean, he couldn't argue with that statement. Got out of the car, went in the back. Okay. Fast forward. He's now about, I don't know, 13 or 14. I mean, today he's like 6 feet. Maybe then he was 5'8", 5'10". I'm 5'3". I had no more memory of that conversation then, even though I have great memory of it now because I use it when I talk because it's such a powerful story that everybody, including families, can clearly relate to. We were getting in the car and he stood next to and he said, I'm sitting in the front. And I said, no, you're sitting in the back. And he just looked at me, looked down at me because I'm looking up at him and said, oh, but I'm bigger than you. And
what these kids remember.
And at that moment, I did remember saying that because it was just so powerful the way transpired, because it was almost like the same, it was almost like a deja vu moment, because we're in that same, standing there
Yeah.
debating on who's going to sit where.
Mm-hmm.
I got in the back seat and I started thinking about that. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about it in the sense that what was the problem? My outcome was at the moment I wanted him in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
But the true message needed to be, why did I want to sit up front? It had nothing to do with the fact that I was bigger than he was.
Right.
Nothing. Nothing at all. It had to do with the fact that I was going to be able to help my husband with directions. We had to talk about things that were going on. He needed to be in the back seat. He could talk to his sister. That
Yeah.
was the appropriate message. So my message at the moment was to just get him in the back.
Right.
And I think that's a powerful story that we can all remember when we're having conversations, especially in family dynamics, especially when it's regarding money. I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
Let's think about the fact that you say to your child, no, you can't have it. We can't afford it.
Right.
Okay. What did that yelling, what did that words do? It shut the conversation down. The no was no, I'm yelling at you, forget it,
You should
it's
never
over.
ask for anything.
Okay. Now, instead, if I looked at you and I said, sweetheart, that's really expensive. And let's talk about priorities. Let's talk about the fact that if you really want this, well, what are other things that we might have to give up? Now you're teaching what you want to teach, those financial, ways to problem solve.
Yes.
You're having, and you're doing it in an authentic moment, right at the moment that it happens.
Yes.
Not a plan, because then it's not real. And the child is involved in that conversation. And maybe in the end, you may end up buying those $300 pair of sneakers that you said were too expensive, because either the child said, well, I'm going to work and I'm going to pay half, or, which is teaching finance, or, you know what? If I get these sneakers, I'm not going to do ABC that you said I was going to do. I won't do this because this is more important to me. And that was fine. And so now we've respected and valued the child.
Right.
They've understand that finances are making choices and making decisions. And as a parent, we think maybe we know those decisions, but maybe if we listen to them, maybe for the child, those sneakers were more important than anything else. And if we have a conversation, and as long as we come to an agreement how that $300 is going to be allocated for the sneakers and not for something else, it's okay, right?
It's not about telling them what to do. It's the communication around making that decision.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's not only is it the what, but it has to be the why.
Right. And I think it's so powerful because it builds the foundation of finance going forward. It's these memorable moments at an early age that build the habits that are created later on. I see it over and over again. So I love it. So when a family member feels unheard, like someone in my family might have felt last night, how can you improve listening and empathy, especially during emotionally charged conversations?
Well, it goes to understanding the other person's perspective. And coming to that conversation where we're not beginning with the solution or this is what I want.
Right.
It's really feeling valued, and perspective taking at least has to mean that I don't necessarily agree with you,
right,
but I hear you. I understand you. I respect you and value what you are saying. And so when you're having those interactions where people are feeling, oh, you're not listening, everything's charged with emotion.
Sure.
If you just write your, okay, what are you saying? And active listening really means not just hearing, but really building on what the other person is saying.
Yeah.
And it also means asking a lot of why questions. So it's not just, okay, you said that and you told me, and that's what, okay, on to the next thing. Well, you were talking about a hotel.
A vacation rental.
Okay. I don't want to stay in that
Yeah.
place. Well, why?
Right.
I mean, was it too close to the beach, not close enough, too far from
Too
town,
expensive or
too
Yeah.
expensive? Not, maybe it was too cheap and they
Right.
said, oh, I don't want to stay I don't like that, the towels aren't going to be good or the sheets aren't good,
Right.
whatever.
Mhm.
All of those reasons, having everybody voice, what do they like?
Yeah.
What don't they like? And then, well, I really want to be close to the beach. Okay, that's good. You say, oh, well, you were hurt.
Yeah.
No, it goes deeper. Okay, you want to be close to, why do you want to be close to the beach?
Right.
Okay, so it might be, well, then I can go swimming whenever I want. Okay, well, let's have a conversation. These are all the things we're going to do on this vacation.
Mhm.
How many times are you really going to be going swimming? If we want to go to this place and if we want to do this and we want to do this, okay, you're going to go swimming 3 times.
Yeah.
Isn't it better that we're a little farther from the beach? We can get you to the beach.
Right.
So now you've started to ask the whys, and that's going to do that. Whereas if you just say, oh, I want to be close to the beach,
Mhm.
well, I want to be over here,
Yeah.
then it shuts down, even though every person did have his chance to say what.
Right.
You really didn't have a conversation about it.
No, and I mean, again, this example that we're using is a vacation rental, right? But you imagine how these conversations magnify with much larger,
Absolutely.
important financial conversations over time. And so that's why I love that we're having this conversation.
Right. And it's so important because, again, it goes to not just having and that's what happens in so many business meetings and
Yeah.
so many even family meetings. What do you want? Okay, well, everybody says that. Well, 3 people want this. Well, we
Mhm.
didn't even want to know why the person that disagreed, we
Yeah.
didn't value that. We just let them say it. That's not enough. So then they're really angry because, well, I didn't want to do that. Well, you didn't even tell me why.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you hear their reason why, everybody else changes their
Yes.
opinion. Oh, wow, that's a good point.
Mhm.
And so, but
It
if we shut down the conversation before that happens,
Yeah.
we're in big trouble.
So just as important with family as it is maybe in a boardroom or
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know you have a lot of experience there as well. So maybe this leads into the next question appropriately. You have a book, Conversations Lead to Consensus. It highlights the consensus building process, which you call the 5 C's of communication.
Right.
So how can families use this model, if you could share it a little bit, to build the values and reduce some of this conflict?
Right. Well, the 5C model, and it really emerged as I was actually writing my first book, which was navigating special education, building parent educator partnerships, because we saw so many meetings where consensus couldn't be met.
Right.
And we
And you're
started
talking about parents
parents and
teachers.
teachers.
Yeah.
And nobody was coming to an agreement, and nobody was feeling valued, and nobody was feeling
Mhm.
heard, and meetings were as a school administrator, too many meetings were monologues, not dialogues.
Sure.
And it really is about a dialogue. And I'm going to say that a dialogue isn't a debate. And what happens in those conversations
Mhm.
became debates. This is what I want. This is whose points and who's going to win. A debate
Yeah.
has a winner and a loser. A conversation, we hope, reaches consensus,
Right.
which is a different path.
Mm.
So when we talk about it, our 5 C's are conversations, collaboration, cooperation, and compromise, because there can still be problems, to
Mhm.
get to consensus,
Okay.
which, as I said earlier, is really not necessarily meaning that I'm going to totally agree with you.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to support, which is what you wanted out of your
Sure.
family meeting.
Mhm.
You wanted to know that in the end, no matter which one of these rentals the
Mhm.
family or everybody was going to agree to, that at least everybody would support the decision.
Sure.
It might not be everyone's first choice, but because of a good conversation, they could at least
There's
accept
an
it.
understanding
And
yeah.
it might be that, there are all these other things we want to do financially.
Mhm.
If we spend a little less money and stay here, we're going to be able to go out for nicer dinners. We're going to be able to maybe get a few more trinkets. We're going to
Right.
be able to do so everybody says, all right, you know what? After we look at it this way, okay, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go with that. It might not be my first choice, but I can support it. So
Right.
so
Okay.
that's what consensus is.
Yeah.
Okay, so conversations, which is where the family has to go, because you're not going to get to that consensus unless you have those conversations. And one of the most important things that can come out of the conversations, which have to be built on active listening,
Mhm.
perspective taking, so I understand what and why you feel something, and then asking a lot of questions.
Okay.
What's going to emerge from that, hopefully, is a shared vision. And it doesn't matter whether it's in the boardroom or whether it's in your living room.
Right.
What is our vision? What is your vision for your vacation?
Mhm.
Talking about it, is the vision for your vacation that everybody just wants to go to the beach?
Right.
Is the vision for your vacation that everybody's going to go and you're going to do a lot of really interesting things that are going to be costly because you're going to this place?
Mhm.
What is the vision that, and everybody has to talk about it and we have to agree what is our joint vision, and that
Sure.
comes from conversation.
Yes.
What your vision of that vacation is might not be the kids.
Right.
And might not be your husband. And so, we have to, it's that conversation.
Okay.
And when we have shared vision, in order to reach consensus and to get to the outcome we want,
Mhm.
we need to collaborate and cooperate with each other. And when we first came up with that, people said, well, that's kind of the same word. That's redundant. No, it's not
It's
redundant.
not.
They're not synonyms. Collaboration really means that I'm going to work with you
Mhm.
towards the same goal.
Okay. Yeah.
And cooperation means that I have some goals and you have some goals, and we're going to support each other.
Got it. That makes sense.
And therefore they are and they're both necessary
Right.
in order to have a successful conversation, in order to take that conversation to the outcome. What is our conclusion that we're going to reach? Whether
Right.
it's how much money we're going to spend, whether it's where we're staying, whatever it is, or in the boardroom.
Subtle
whatever.
difference. Yeah.
But we are going to have to do that, because let's go to the boardroom situation. We're going to all collaborate to reach our goal of increasing sales.
Mhm.
However, there's some things that the finance people have to do, that they have to cooperate and give us information.
Mm.
So I have to collaborate with them to find out that information if I'm the marketing person, because
Yeah.
that's not my area of expertise,
Right.
that it's theirs. But together we're using all of our areas of expertise to reach our outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And then compromise. Most people look at compromise and get really upset because they say, "Ah, there's nothing I want to give up."
Right.
And we
Because that's what it
said,
means, right? You feel like you're giving up.
okay, and what our model says is compromise is not giving up. Compromise is through those conversations, I'm going to hear your ideas and you're going to hear mine. And hopefully, as a compromise, we're going to take a little bit of everything and mesh it together. So I don't feel like I'm giving something up. I really feel like maybe I'm creating something bigger and better than I even thought possible.
Right. Okay.
And
Interesting.
and so that's what, and then when we get to that point, we're willing to we've reached consensus.
That's the result of the 5 C's.
Yeah. And in the house, it's the same.
It's not an easy process.
It's not, but it's got to do with the conversations.
Yeah.
And I'm going to jump ahead to one of the other questions you had, because I think it fits in here.
Please do.
And that is, when we're having these difficult conversations, one of the things that we feel, because is something that we call a pre-meeting, but I think in the family, this is just as important than it is in corporations. So if you have, I know you have 2 children, and so first of all, if you have these little mini meetings between each other, so what do you and your husband, what is your vision? And maybe it isn't the same when you start out.
Sure.
And then you come, okay, and then each of your, in your case, daughters, what do each of you, and maybe you talking to that one-on-one, and then your husband. So now you've really heard, everybody's kind of really had a chance to ask questions, and it's not been in this, okay, we're having a family meeting.
Right. Right.
And that's hard. So everybody's talked about it, and they've also been able to think about it, brainstorm,
Okay.
heard each other's point of view. It's less stressful and less um, time consuming
Sure.
in
Yeah.
that time of that meeting. So if we have those little mini meetings, I mean, in the
Okay.
house,
Yeah.
just like in a company, it's
Absolutely.
just as effective, then when you do come, you really understand where everybody's coming
There's
from.
there's like a base established.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you understand, and probably that understanding is going to mean that maybe something that one of your daughters wanted, she's already let go of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe what your husband thought that he wanted, he's kind of let go of too,
Right.
or looked at it and changed it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because he heard what his daughter wanted. And he said, okay, well, I can, we can do that, but I can also have some time to just chill on the beach if we do it this way,
Yeah.
which is different than the way he'd originally thought.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
think
that
that
makes complete
all
sense.
of that and those little mini meetings do
Mm.
help reduce that anger and conflict
Yeah.
because the larger the group, the more everybody's kind of yelling and screaming and
Right.
having that. And go back to that yelling.
Yes.
If we yell, and this is not just me saying it, but the research says people stop listening. They don't, they shut down. They only hear yelling. I mean, I remember when my
Not just
husband,
teenagers.
not just teenagers. I remember when my husband and I first got married and we'd have a few arguments. Not that we still after all these years,
Yeah.
we all still argue, but I remember my go-to thing was always because he tended to yell.
Mm-hmm.
And he would say, well, I'm just getting my point across.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, I would say, well, you were yelling at me.
Right.
And he'd say, well, no, I was trying to tell you what I thought.
Yeah.
And,
I think I've said that too over the years.
okay, you're yelling at me. Well, because I couldn't tell you what he said, what he thought.
Right.
I only heard volume.
Yeah.
And I think.
And he doesn't think he's yelling.
Correct.
Amazing. I know.
Or he thinks he's just being more
Right.
emphatic or more,
Yeah.
strong about his conviction or
Mhm.
why it should be. So it's really important not to yell
Yeah.
when you're talking and think about that. And because you don't want the person not to listen to you.
Correct. Yeah. And that happens a lot with teenagers too.
Right. And it happens with parents who just want to get their point across.
Yeah, absolutely.
And remember, as going back to what I said earlier, if you yell that no,
Mhm.
no just shuts down a conversation
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
And if you yell, you're not doing that, or
Right.
we can't go there. They don't hear anything except even if you go on to be really great and tell them why, they
Mhm.
never heard you.
That's already passed.
That's passed because they heard yelling.
Mhm.
She yelled at me. She's not, and so I stopped listening.
Okay. Interesting.
The same.
And it's such a knee-jerk reaction.
It is.
For so many of us. You have to really try and stop and pause, and it's hard to do.
It is hard to do.
Especially when you're multitasking, you're busy. It's like, why can't you just agree with me and let's be done?
Right. And it's hard. And I know that recently my granddaughter was having some conflict with her parents
Yeah.
over some disagreement and decided she wanted me to get involved,
Oh.
which I didn't. But she calls me on the phone and and is crying and screaming, whatever. And I just took this deep breath and I spoke very softly and slowly.
Okay.
Because if we slow down our rate, it slows down our body and it helps us feel calmer.
Calmer. Okay. Also
And
not easy to do.
it's not easy to do. It's something, but I took that and and I just explained to her point by point, one, why I wasn't getting involved, and two, that what I was hearing her say and what I was hearing she was telling me, and just laying out the situation, not taking sides,
Right.
but just kind of making it, okay, this is what you're saying, this is what's being said.
Okay.
Think about what it means.
Sure.
And that really reduces that stress and that anxiety that everybody has, and it's not easy.
No.
If you start thinking about it and doing it,
Okay. Yeah.
it's a process like everything else.
I'm sure it's a lesson that we could all use to some extent.
We could,
So, yeah.
and when you start to scream, if you go,
Yeah.
and just go, wait a minute, it's almost like, let's do a reset. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start again.
Yeah.
And even if you've yelled as a parent, and then you say, wait a minute, okay. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't be yelling.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Let's reset. Your child is going to be much more receptive to that conversation.
Sure.
When you say, okay, because they like the fact that you admitted
Acknowledge
that I really shouldn't have been yelling.
Right. Okay. I think that's so important. Thank you. So how can parents model conflict resolution for children, especially around sensitive topics like finance?
Well, first of all, you don't want to hide that there's a problem. And I think you and I have talked about that. There are many families who don't really let their children know that they can't afford this, or that their dad isn't working, or the stock market just crashed, or or there was fraud against their account and things were frozen. I mean, all of these things, being honest with kids on telling them there's a problem.
Right.
And what it is.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't mean that you need to tell them how many dollars are in your checking account. That doesn't mean you need to tell them what their father makes. You just need to be honest that there is an issue. We have less money than we did because we had a major medical expense. I mean, there's a million reasons why. Kids don't think about the fact that, you had your tooth pulled and it cost,
Right. Thousands of dollars.
To take care of it. Kids don't think about that.
No.
If you tell them, then you're teaching them. Also, that's just another finance piece of information that they're giving them. Oh, you mean you don't go to the doctor and it's nothing?
Right. There's a financial consequence.
There's a consequence.
Okay.
Even if you did nothing wrong.
Right.
It still is.
Okay.
So that is really important. And then when you're having those conversations, remembering that if there's a lot of conflict, you can tell them how you feel. The I feel this way, instead of saying, well, you're telling me, then you're pointing your finger at them.
Yeah.
All right, I feel that this is a problem because, and then how do you feel? And I want you to tell me what your thinking is. And that can really help. And always when you're having these difficult conversations, don't come to this conversation with, I know the answer.
Right.
We're not buying those $300
shoes.
We're not doing it. That's not going to solve the problem. What is the problem? The problem is you want something that costs more than the average, and we need to discuss what are the consequences of spending that money. We need to discuss what sacrifices we might have to make if we do spend the money.
Right.
Or should we, delay that expense, which is hard for kids.
It's hard for kids, yeah.
However, what would delaying the expense mean? And having those conversations. So when you do that, and always remember to put connect your actions and your words. So model what you're saying. Don't have them see that you came home with something extravagant if you're telling them. And if you did buy something extravagant and you're the parent and you're entitled and you work hard, explain to them, well, I bought this new dress, but I have this gala that I have to go to, and it's for business, and I have to look my best because that's how I'm going to get clients.
Right.
So then they're going to understand it's not that I want to look cool with the kids.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. And I don't know, I think I've talked about this in a past podcast, but my girls are aware of my anxiety when I spend money. And I never know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. However, my youngest recently wanted a new pair of volleyball shoes. And she kind of handed me the iPad and she's like, I need these. And I looked at her and I was like, you can't say that to me. And my older daughter came in and said, no, you need to explain to mom why you need it. And you need to know how much they are. And it was kind of interesting. She was walking her through it. And so I was like, okay, there we go. So, but I never know if it's the right thing or wrong thing that they understand that I do get anxiety about spending money. Sometimes I think it's good that they're conscious of how they spend, but then other times I don't know if I don't want to make them anxious as well.
Well,
There's a balance, right?
there is balance, and anxiety isn't always bad.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think that if you look at it, you're
I just want to make sure it doesn't turn bad.
right.
Yeah.
So if you're anxious, is anxious really the right word? Are you just a cautious spender and
Yeah.
you are, you get nervous when certain because you want to make sure that there's money for other things.
Right.
And so what you do subconsciously is when you make that purchase that you were anxious
You
about.
swipe that credit card at Costco and you're
Right.
like, oh my gosh.
Right, but and lately it's I swiped the credit card at the grocery store and I
Yeah.
know I needed these groceries and I didn't want to spend this money, but I had no choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but you've gone through that process in your head of why should I have spent this, or why is it okay, or
Right.
why do I need to spend this money even though it's making me anxious
Yeah.
to buy this dress or get a new washing machine where maybe we could limp through for
Yeah.
3 more months, or maybe I don't need the highest end.
Yeah.
But you've rationalized, well, maybe the highest end will get me the long-term investment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, so letting kids know, yeah, I get nervous when we're spending money. It's not just that I get nervous when I'm spending money on you.
Exactly.
I'm not nervous when I get spending money on me or on the house. And this is why, because we've always got to be. And I think
Yeah.
letting kids know, I mean, some people go one way, some people go another, on how they were brought up. But
Right.
some kids had traumas when they were growing up. Either some kids didn't have money, and so they just want to spend when they have it because it's like, oh my God, I never had it,
I
and
never had it.
and
Yeah.
now I'm happy. Some kids
Do the opposite.
The opposite. They didn't have money
Yeah.
as a child, and they're so afraid to spend money, even when they have it and could afford it.
It's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Talking through that and then helping the kids understand, I have these anxiety, I'm going through it too. I'm trying to teach you because I don't want you to have these anxieties.
Yes.
When you're an adult, I don't want you to say, oh, if I'd only done that, I would have the money. If I'd only known. Better to have those conversations so that they don't say that.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. It is fascinating to me. So what role does co-planning play in growing stronger communication, and how can it help major life change events such as moving, remarrying? I mean, there's so many pivotal moments in a family, right?
Right. Well, I guess going back to what I said, I think co-planning is also those mini meetings.
That's the mini meetings.
I
Yep.
really think that that's the mini meetings because
Okay. Love it.
you're co-planning, meaning that you and each of, so you're getting you and your husband are chatting about whatever this is going to be.
Yeah.
And where is it going? And maybe it's, should I change that job? Shouldn't I change that
Right.
job? Should we move? Should we not move?
Right.
And then with the kids, it's, well, what does moving mean? And sometimes it's to address some of these problems. I think it's important for us to open up and share with our children experiences that we had when we were growing up.
Okay. Yes.
And
I love
the
that.
traumas that, or positive or negatives.
Right.
I mean,
Maybe a little of both.
A little of both. I mean, when my granddaughter asked me the other day, well, she said, well, where were you born? And I said, well, New York City, but I never really lived there. My parents were from the Bronx, and so my mother went to New York because her mother thought that that was the best doctors. And my parents were living in Virginia at the time, and it was rather backward where they were. So it turned out it was a good decision. But I said, I never lived there and so I started telling her, well, I lived in 3 different places, for each place 6 years of my life. So I had no real connection, whereas I've lived in Connecticut my entire adult life.
Right.
So to me, this is where I'm from.
Yeah. Okay.
And yet, for her, she was born in Connecticut, has lived here all of her life, is getting ready to go off to college. So that's going to be really where she's from, no matter where she goes or no matter how long she lives.
Right.
It's a different life experience.
Absolutely.
And it was just a conversation we were having, but that's important. And she said, she didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now she may have, but forgot.
Yeah.
But, and again, even if you tell your child your story once, you can tell it again.
Yeah.
They may not remember it, or it may, every story has
Yeah.
so many different morals or conclusions.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about families experience generational or value-based disconnects?
I think that value-based disconnects and generational goes back again to those stories.
Okay.
When I know that, you know, my granddaughter was talking about her relationship with her boyfriend, and, you know, and the families liking, not liking, whatever. The point being, I talked to her, I shared, well, did I ever tell you about your father and one of his girlfriends and what Grampy and I said?
Yeah.
So I think that when you
Mhm.
have those conversations and you relate, then they can relate, because now you're not talking about it at whatever age you are,
Yeah.
mom of a teenager, but
Yeah.
you're talking about it. Oh, I remember when I was 16, my mom didn't like
Yeah.
the guy I was dating.
Right.
And he, you know, and she, yeah, but she never really told me why.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to tell you why I have this problem.
Mm.
And so you're going to talk about what your experience was. And if it was good, oh, my
Right.
mom told me this, and she explained to me all these ramifications of why taking this job was a better summer job than this job. And I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you the same thing. These are the choices you have. This is why.
Right.
So that helps build that generational gap.
Okay. And there's stories that they'll remember.
And we remember stories. If
Yeah.
you tell somebody, don't do this, or this is the best, they don't remember. If you make it a part of a story,
Right.
they're going to remember it.
Yeah, especially if it's a personal family one.
Yes.
Okay.
And the more stories you can get,
Yeah.
and people, they're going to listen. And you know what? They're going to repeat them. And I bet you they'll repeat them to their kids.
Yeah. I oh boy.
They will.
Yeah, I'm sure that they will. I'm noticing that already with my family. My girls are already repeating stories that I've shared with them to my parents. And my parents are like, "Oh, let me correct that story." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Let's keep the story the way it is."
Well, that's it. Let them know that's your that's
There's a little opinion coming in.
this is grandma and grandpa's what should I say, version of it or spin of it.
Yeah.
And
But
this
we
is
joke
my
about it.
and this is my spin.
Yeah.
And again, that's helping kids understand perspective taking, because
Yes.
they are seeing it through their eyes and their perspective.
Yeah.
And you saw it at the time through your eyes and your perspective as a child. You're now seeing it through your eyes and your perspective as an adult looking
Right.
back. And you know what? My guess is all of those versions are not really the exact version. It's a little bit of
Sure.
everything.
Sure, exactly.
It really is, because we don't really remember.
Yeah.
There's emotionality that gets involved in those memories.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. So how do you measure the impact of stronger communication? Whether it's, reducing stress, greater alignment, improved outcomes. That can't be an easy thing to do.
No, I think that if you really practice active listening in the sense of always making sure and asking for clarification,
Okay.
and always making sure that you really understood what the person was saying.
Yeah.
So instead of your, child just hearing that you said, no, I can't buy those sneakers. And and if they tell you back, well, you told me I can't buy those sneakers. Yeah, I did. However, I also explained to you why.
Okay.
You want them to remember that's going,
Yeah.
and then if they say, well, you know what, you told me I can't have those sneakers because I've been thinking, now you're going to know, okay, now communication is starting to improve.
Yeah.
Because they've reflected on what was said.
Right.
They are coming back and maybe revisiting a conversation based on what was said, based on what happened.
Okay.
And that will reduce stress, and it will build that alignment. And if you think about the 5 C's, where we always are hoping to get to consensus, so that we have meaningful decisions. I mean, I was writing a blog with my co-author and about decision making, and I talked about majority rule.
Okay.
And I was raised that way, and I think it's a terrible way to be raised because it was, well, how many people want, pizza for dinner? And if 3 people wanted pizza and I didn't,
Right.
then, well, the majority wants pizza. Nobody asked me
Why don't you want
why
pizza?
didn't you want pizza?
Right.
They may not know that last night when I was at my friend's house, we had
Yeah.
pizza for dinner and I just don't want it 2 nights in a row.
Mhm.
Maybe they'll say, oh, well, maybe we could find something else.
Yeah.
They're not thinking. So I
And
think,
even worse if you're the one that's never the majority wins.
correct. And what happens when I call it the silent minority.
Yeah.
Which means that you're forced to go along, which
Mhm.
is why we want to reach consensus
Yeah.
and not have decision making be, okay, here's the choices that we have for
Yes.
where our vacation home is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, 3 of us want to go here, that's where we're going.
Right.
The fourth one is the silent minority, and they're going to sabotage, come up with reasons why that wasn't a good decision.
Okay. And
Always.
that happens a lot in business.
Yes, very much so. I've written, actually, I will send it to you. I just wrote an incredible article about um, the silent minority and finance.
Oh, okay. Look at that.
And
Yes.
it appeared in the Financial Journal
Oh, that's fantastic.
through the
Okay.
Financial Executive Network.
Okay.
They have a journal, and I
will
wrote
take
it
a
for
look.
that because the silent minority
Yeah.
is, the unhappy minority
Yeah.
is so it just happens all the time in business, and it happens in the family, and there's
Mhm.
always somebody that doesn't be. So therefore, if your goal is to have enough conversations, whether it's lots of minis or whatever, so at least everyone is willing to accept the decision because they feel valued, they feel their voice was heard, they feel they were listened to.
Yeah.
A great example of that in the business context is you come to a meeting and you really feel that this is the best, let's say, marketing plan.
Mhm.
And as the conversation goes, there's other people, and the majority, so to speak, say, well, we're going to go with this way.
Mhm.
Okay, so now you've got a minority and majority. Well, what happens if, as they've listened to you and you say, okay, I hear that, but everybody's saying we can do this plan and in a month it's going to be good to go. And
Okay.
you know what? I can tell you because of this, and this, that we really need to see this as a 2 month,
Okay.
plan.
Yeah.
And if we do it this way, I think it's, it will be successful.
Mm.
And everybody said, oh, you're right. So now they're not going with your plan,
Yeah.
but you don't feel like the minority.
Exactly.
You feel like you contributed, you were valued, and you were also able to listen and say, okay, well, I hear this. Okay, that might be, but let's think about how to do it in this way. And that's so important, whether it's in the family
Yeah.
or whether it's, you don't want to make a decision where one person is not, and that happens. And with little kids, I see it happening a lot. And that's where
It does,
the
yeah.
kids having the meltdown that was so unnecessary.
Interesting. Yeah. I can think back in so many examples with my girls that we experience that. So it's so subtle sometimes too, right? You don't realize in the moment that that's what you're doing.
Right. And what also can happen in a family dynamic is it goes beyond that because one child doesn't want to do something. And you as the parent know that we really have to do,
Right.
we have to go to grandma's.
Right.
Whether you want to go to
There's usually one child that does and one child that doesn't.
Okay. So it goes again to making sure that they understand why you're doing it. So now they don't feel like it's a majority decision, but
We're going because I say you're going.
Yes, and it's not because I say you're going, it's because this is what, it's grandpa's birthday, or we haven't seen them for 3 weeks, or we're going to be gone for the next 2 weeks. And so it's really important that we all check in, and they're getting older and they really like to see you. So, and maybe your compromise is, well, we were going to go for dinner and spend the evening, but let's do this. I'm going to tell grandma that we're going to come for dinner. And then if they want to join us, they can, but we're going to all go out for ice cream.
Okay. That's
Wow, what
Yeah.
just happened to
Yeah.
that? We just changed that.
All
All
right. The
right,
last time I had this conversation.
you know, now, okay, and maybe grandma and grandpa say no,
Yeah.
but we're gonna go out. So now we're not spending the whole evening. We're only spending a little bit of time. We're doing what we have to do.
Yeah.
So now we've made that compromise
Mhm.
without saying, okay, what's the compromise?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it was sort of the meshing of, I don't want to do that,
Mhm.
and we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
To, oh, this is a better idea. We were never planning to go out for ice cream.
Right.
Never.
Right. And I have to say, I was thinking back to when you and I first met and we were talking about doing this podcast. We were talking about different topics and stuff. And I said, how do we bring communication into a financial related topic? And how silly of me to think back of that conversation.
And my
It's-
response was, from my perspective, communication is
Yeah.
at the root of
Everything.
absolutely
I know.
everything we do.
Yeah. And I talk about it all the time.
It's just
Yeah.
we can't get away from it.
No.
And it's looking, and our goal is how to have those successful conversations, because we all have conversations.
Absolutely.
And what we don't realize and think about is we're all, as human beings,
Mhm.
most of us are lucky enough to be able to have been born with the ability to speak,
Yeah.
to hear, to listen, to be able to do this.
Mhm.
We are not born with the ability to be an effective and
Right.
successful communicator.
Yeah.
So
Gotta work at it.
that's a skill that we have to hone
Yeah.
and practice. And it, as you're saying,
Yeah.
oh, I wish I thought about that. It's something that we need to revisit all the time.
Right. Okay.
And I think companies need to revisit it because, oh, everybody's really good at this. But you know what? They're
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
They're good at a lot of things, but then there's this one thing, and oh wow, if we hone this,
Right.
whatever the industry is or the problem is, it's going to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, congratulations, by the way, on all of your speaking accomplishments, the book, and just
Thank you so much.
your message. I know you've been busy running around and presenting.
Yes.
Is there anything that's next for you, or?
Well, I guess I would first want to say that I'm busy with this because I truly love this quote, and that is, the single biggest problem with the communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Okay.
And George Bernard Shaw said that, which we can see because he lived that when he created Pygmalion, which is what
Yeah.
My Fair Lady is. You create an illusion and you can create anything.
Right.
Well, when we talk, we think we're clear, we think we're getting our messages across,
Mhm.
but we're not always. And so my goal is to continue that passion,
I
to
love it.
be able to help, whether it be families, whether it be businesses, no, to be able to understand how to take communication to the next level,
Right.
how to make sure that those conversations are successful.
Yeah.
I write blogs and I post on LinkedIn and I do coaching. I think my favorite thing is to do keynotes and to
Okay.
speak to groups because I love to look at people's faces and say, oh, really? It's really that easy?
Yeah.
Because, it's kind of like those aha moments. And I've been doing a talk that I think every company, every individual should kind of work with me in here. And it's how to have a successful, difficult conversation, which is what we were talking about today.
Yeah.
But I go into a lot more. What are the differences in conversations
Yeah.
and what's going on? Because I bet you didn't realize this. I think it's more than 75% of our conversations every day
Mhm.
are transactional.
That seems high.
It is, but
Yeah.
think about it. What time, where,
Yeah.
telling people what we're doing,
Yeah.
what's happening. They're the telling kinds of, that's all,
Yes.
they are,
Wow.
even if you talk to your clients and you tell them about their portfolios,
Mhm.
those are transactional conversations. And I don't mean in having a transaction, but you're
Right.
giving them information.
Yep.
You're not really having, because it's not a conversation.
Right.
You're giving them facts.
Yes. We try not to have it just be transactional, but yes.
But it's mostly
yeah.
transactional. And then our conversations at home. Hi, I'll be home at 5. Where do you want to have dinner? What
Mhm.
all those things that we do,
Yeah.
they're all transactional.
Interesting.
And the conversations that are difficult are, and when they are difficult, we have to make them transformational.
Okay.
And transformational conversations mean that I'm not going to just tell you my opinion and why, but I'm going to also seek out and understand your perspective
Right.
and why. And then our conversation can be transformational because we're looking at everybody's perspectives.
Okay.
And most conversations, all these difficult conversations that we've just talked about, really were more transactional. No, you can't have the $300 for the sneakers.
Yeah.
Where are we going to go? That's a transactional.
That's transactional. Okay.
Right? Even though you don't think about it that way. And until you do a deeper transformational conversation where you start thinking, well, why don't you want us to stay at this property?
Right.
And what will it mean if we stay someplace else? And why am I pushing? Because I really feel that the money is the most important thing,
Right.
or I really feel that the beach is the most important thing, or whatever. And now you're starting to have transformational conversations.
Okay.
But I bet you if you start thinking about your conversations, most of them are transactional.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. I was also thinking, I wonder if I can bring you home tonight and we can start that vacation conversation over again. Well, Peggy,
You can get on Zoom.
Where can people find you? I know you mentioned LinkedIn.
Yes, Peggy at peggybud.com, Peggy Bud on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for your wisdom, and you can come back anytime.
Okay, well, I would be glad to. Thank you.